black samurai, robots, mech warriors, sorcerers, adventure, thrills and chills. Yasuke, coming to a Netflix near you. Is what I would have said if this review came out on schedule. But much like its source material, the finale of On the Run Season 1 has continued to defy any and all attempts on the part of our specialists to wrangle it into submission. But despite repeated assassination attempts, and to the eternal frustration of our enemies, we have prevailed. Yes, my friends, welcome to On the Run Productions Season 1 finale, On the Run Reviews, Yasuke. So if you're an anime fan, you've likely heard of this recent Netflix original show, Yasuke, directed by LaShawn Thomas, which is somewhat based on the true story of the first African samurai. Now when most people heard the above, Black Samurai, Black Director, Feudal Japan, they thought,
wow, this is probably gonna be pretty neat.
But not I. When I first learned of this show and who was to be at the helm, my mind went to a dark place. Yes, I remembered another show made by this LaShawn Thomas. I remembered how excited I was and how disappointed I felt upon reaching the end. How empty I felt. That feeling stays with you like a scar delivered to your flesh by a loved one you once thought of dearly. And it hurt just to look at it again. That sort of emptiness never goes away. So let's just say my initial expectations about the show came with a big fat asterisk next to them. Now, to his credit, LaShawn Thomas did also work on The Boondocks and The Legend of Korra, but it's clear he functions better in the artistic storytelling realm than the writing department. Am I right? Quiet! Anyway, on to Yasuke. If you're uninitiated, you may likely not know who he is. So, time for a history lesson. Yasuke, the first black samurai, arrived in Japan as a slave by way of an Italian missionary. Despite these humble beginnings, he soon found his way into the court of the legendary Oda Nobunaga, Japan's first great unifier, and was trained in the art of the samurai. Accounts say Yasuke was even present during the infamous Honnoji incident, where Nobunaga was betrayed by his most trusted allies and generals. But what happened to Yasuke after this becomes increasingly more difficult to discern. Most everything in this history is described in the show, though it does take some minor liberties, like inaccurate costume choices, unfounded dialogue between Yasuke and his fellow samurai, the 500-foot tall mechs that appear now and again, and what happened after the Honnoji incident. What was that? Oh yes, I did say 500-foot tall mechs. If you saw Cannon Busters, this may sound a bit familiar in that LaShawn Thomas has made incorporating wildly anachronistic technologies and time periods a staple of his work. Yasuke's most distinctive feature, therefore, is this anachronism. This anachronism even extends to the weirdly harmonious mixture of that feudal Japan aesthetic with lo-fi hip-hop in the OST, courtesy of producer Flying Lotus. If nothing else, the show wears its inspirations on its sleeve. Now, you may be thinking, When the heck are they gonna get on with it and actually start talking about the anime? Well, see, here's where we begin to delve into the first big problem with Yasuke. For a show based on real-world events, Yasuke has a lot of world building it needs to do. A lot. Far more than a 6-episode series can possibly manage, especially when telling a tale about a man this big. You need to give a 5-hour soliloquy on the series before you can even think of talking about it, because the series doesn't do a good enough job for you. It feels like it's trying to take its story so many places and do so many different things, and it somehow fails at almost all of those things. You think, at first, that it begins in medias res, and the remainder of the story will be flashback, explaining the rise and eventual fall of Nobunaga's shogunate. Seeing that history explained with rad samurai warriors and mechs, heck yeah, sounds like a good time. But well, no, most of that history is just told in scattered flashbacks, which is a shame because I found myself liking those flashbacks far more than the present day story. That in mind, the present day story follows Yasan, living in disgrace as a nameless boatsman, being asked to ferry a girl named Saki. We'll get to her later. A girl named Saki to a safe place when she is pursued by mercenaries. So you think, it's gonna be a sort of Lone Wolf and Cub, The Last of Us story about a big guy with a small buddy? Honestly, I'm down. But well, not really, because 1, that plot is all cut up by uneven interactions with said mercenaries, as well as the sinister Christian missionary who hired them, and is disposed of both too quickly and not quickly enough. And 2, Yasuke and Saki don't even leave the starting town until episode 3.5. But fine, okay, so the rest of the story is going to be about them venturing together, right? Well, no, because they get to their destination literally in that same episode. And you know what's even worse? The episode is titled The Long Road. Clearly, it wasn't long enough. So then, they arrive at their destination, and I don't even remember what I expected the story to look like at this point. But oh no, a new antagonist who either wasn't mentioned before or wasn't given proper weight prior to this has made themselves known and is threatening to take over Japan. And not only are they right on the safe haven's doorstep, for some reason, there's a secret tunnel from the haven leading directly into the enemy citadel? This show is bloated. That bloat poisons the rest of the show. The writers appeared unable to decide on the precise direction the plot would take, and that resulted in many characters often not getting enough backstory, demanding the viewer feels emotion for situations that did not earn that emotion. Ichiro is the first victim of this plight. A prominent character and prospective fighter in the first third of the show, his only real purpose is to hype up how cool Yasan is, be easily tricked into believing Yasan is actually a villain, give a bit of exposition about Saki, and then get left behind in the starting town. You'd think that he might join Yasan and Saki on their quest, or be given some sort of character development. But no, he's abandoned in favor of focusing on the other, arguably less interesting child character, Saki. Saki is one of the most important players in the show and is the character we spend the second most time with. Yasuke has sworn to protect her throughout this vague journey, and yet through it all, I never feel like I know what her deal is. Saki has some sort of psychic ability that is said and demonstrated to be extremely powerful, but we're never really given a reason why she is powerful, beyond a vague sort of chosen one shtick alluded to by the Christian missionary who wants her, but then he dies. Then Kurosaka wants her, but then she dies. Then the daimyo wants her, but then she dies. And the worst thing is, Saki ultimately doesn't even need Yasuke's protection because she is able to defeat every enemy she encounters effortlessly, including the mercenaries. This ethnically diverse troop of combatants is a major thorn in the side of Yasuke and Saki, mostly acting as lackeys to that episode's daily villain. Problem is, the characters in this troop are so paper thin, doing little besides making half-hearted wisecracks. They get a little better when they decide to join Yasuke's cause in the back half, but by then the damage was already done, because there's no way to give them proper characterization without taking from the pale facsimile of a resolution in the works. So we're left with a gaping emotional hole in the show, simply because these characters are always there, but never bring anything substantial to the series besides their admittedly rad character designs. Maybe if they didn't take so much away from time spent with the most important character, I wouldn't mind as much. Which brings us to Yasuke himself. The joke of this review is that, like the show it is critiquing, the main character is only in 20% of it despite him being the unequivocal best part about it. Yasuke is actually unapologetically awesome. And while I wasn't initially sold on Lakeith Stanfield as a samurai, even I had to admit his performance grew on me. Yasuke is a solid samurai archetype with a fish out of water twist. His honor-bound, gentlemanly demeanor is great, but you can also tell he's in a state of mourning following his descent from his previous life. Still, he's got a bit of a sense of humor to him too. His backstory is excellent, and once again, I constantly found myself enjoying that more than what occurs in the present. In a world filled with humongous mecha and evil sorcerers, Yasuke being a with a samurai sword made him grounded, and I could better follow and identify with the battles he fought in, which honestly weren't as many as you'd think. Every part of the show that placed Yasuke at the forefront worked, but that happens so rarely. There's so much going on that Yasuke himself, the most interesting character to hang out with his name on the title, is pushed to the sidelines. It's disappointing. I hesitate to say that there is any sort of cure-all or panacea for this show, but if forced to give just one recommendation, it was too short. A longer show may have been able to allow these writers to proverbially have their cake and eat it as well. Giving more time to flesh out Yasuke's backstory would have done wonders. Giving more time to allow Yasuke and Saki's relationship to blossom would have done wonders. Giving more time to build up the trite evil overlord threat of the final act would have done wonders. Barring that, Yasuke should have chosen one of these plots, each of which could fill a season of anime on its own, and went with that. But they didn't. They got greedy, and they tried to tell a coherent story that simply could not fit within the 6-episode time frame. And just knowing how good the show could have been if that problem was acknowledged early enough in the pipeline makes me really sad. When we went into Yasuke, the official on-the-run prediction of the show was that it likely wasn't going to be an all-timer. So our expectations were tempered, hoping it would at least be a good show. But, and I'm truly pained to admit this, it was not. And it doesn't matter how solid the music is, or how well they integrated CGI animation with hand-drawn styles. The pictures were pretty, and the fights were sick, but the story wasn't there, and when the story isn't there, everything suffers. It's our sincerest hope that the people who made the show look at it critically and learn from their mistakes. But, and with all due respect, if the brains behind Cannon Busters could not glean their failure from that show's one-season cancellation, I don't have high hopes. But hey, that's just me. What do you think about Yasuke? Am I being too harsh, or did I miss something? Is it secretly an all-timer and I was just too dumb to get it? Or did I totally miss something to rag on about the show? Whatever your thoughts may be, feel free to drop them into the comment section below. Likes and subscribes also appreciated. In the meantime, we'll be on the run. Peace and stay safe.